dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got another book talk video to share with you guys. And today we are going to be talking about A Complicated Kindness by Miriam Toews. Now, if you've been watching my book talk videos for any length of time, you might remember that a few months ago we talked about All My Puny Sorrows by the same author. This book, I cannot recommend this book highly enough. It's one of my favorites. It's one of those books that are so sad you sob. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm sad. No. This is a cry into your tea, take a nap when you're done to try to recharge your batteries after the emotional drainage that has happened. And I love a book like that. So yeah, definitely recommend that. Just wanted to throw that in there before we get into the other one. So this book here, I think this one came first. And like the other, it's won a ton of awards. It's won the Governor General's Literary Award, which is a huge one here in Canada. And I'm just so taken with this writer's style. She's so talented. That said, however, this one was not my fave. It was well written. It was, it's beautiful. Much like All My Puny Sorrows. Because the thing about that one is no matter how heartbreaking it is, it's beautiful. And Miriam is an absolute genius when it comes to writing prose. She's one of those writers that you read her and you think, I wish I could do that as well as you can. That said, still a good book. The book takes place in a small Mennonite community in the prairies of Canada. It's about a family, the Nichols. There's a mom and dad and two daughters, Tash and Nomi. The story is told from Nomi's point of view, and we're sort of thrown directly into the middle of chaos right at the beginning of the book. Nomi's life is kind of just in shambles, and it's just, it's a lot. So what has happened is, right at the beginning, we learn that about 3 years ago,
Nomi's sister, Tash, left town. It's tongue twister. Okay.
About 3 years ago, Nomi's sister Tash left town. And their family, they're a very devout Christian family of Mennonites, and what I learned from the book is, that's a very intense way to live and to grow up. And the rules are very, very strict. And unlike the Hutterites, which we also have in the prairies in Canada and here out east too, the Hutterites have the traditional dress, but it would appear the Mennonites, they don't. They can sort of dress however they want. So that's sort of the difference there from what I can tell in terms of, visually. So you've got this, it's a Mennonite community. It's only Mennonites that live in it. They have their church and, their whole own community. Trains do not go in or out of it, just to sort of keep it from making it too easy to come and go. The dad at one point says specifically, go. And in the summertime, a lot of American tourists come to this town to sort of see what it's like in such a preserved community. So we learn early on that Nomi's sister Tash has left. She has decided this is not the life for her, and she makes a big move and she goes. And what we later learn is that she had the support of her mother. Like, her parents knew she was leaving. They knew that this life would just have crushed her and it wasn't for her. So no matter how painful it was, they sort of gave her their blessings to go. But here's the thing. When you go, either of your own volition or if you are excommunicated from the religion and the community, you no longer exist to the people who are part of that community, and that includes your family. So Tash goes, and that sort of sends the mom into a bit of a tailspin, because she also begins questioning their religion and their beliefs, and why are those the rules. And sort of through these outbursts that she has at church and with, you know, the pastor, if that's what he's called, like the head of the church, she sort of has a bunch of outbursts with him, and it ends in her being excommunicated. So when we start the story, Nomi is living in the community with her father, Ray, and her mother and her sister are gone. And she doesn't know where they are. She hasn't heard from them. And being left alone has really put a damper on her whole life. During the present time when she's speaking, she's a senior in high school, but she's really floundering. Her grades are dropping. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. She knows that if she stays, you know, as a part of this community, her career options are very limited. She figures she'll end up working probably at the chicken slaughter factory in town. And so she doesn't really understand, like, what's the point in working hard if that's just where I'm going to be. And her dad's a teacher for younger kids. And he's an interesting character. He's, you know, he's left alone, but he's very, you know, his wife is gone, who he was crazy about. He was in love with his wife. His eldest daughter's gone, and now he's just sort of trying to make the best of it. And Nomi's drinking, and she's doing drugs with her boyfriend Travis, and she's just falling apart, although she makes it very clear to her father that he doesn't have to worry. No matter what happens, she won't leave him the way the others have left him. And it kind of goes from there. One of the things, I read some reviews when I was done with the book, and a lot of people said that they found it terribly sad, and one woman said she cried for the last, like, 2 chapters, and I didn't have that reaction. There was definitely some sadness in this book for me, but I didn't honestly relate to Nomi a whole lot. Maybe it was because she was 16 years old, but I don't think so, because I can easily read a book with a young protagonist and still feel, you know, relatable, find it relatable. But I just didn't with Nomi. There was something about her that was a little brash to me that I didn't quite sympathize with her a whole lot. Ray, on the other hand, the dad, I felt for him so much. But Nomi, I didn't get as close to her as, you know, I normally do with book characters. There was a touch of that unrelatable narrator, or unreliable narrator, I should say, that I love. I love when a narrator, you cannot trust them, and she definitely had that going on as well, so I found that fun. Because, of course, when you're 16 years old, everything is so big. And, of course, what she's going through are big things. But when you're 16, it's just so much more dramatic and not necessarily in the ways that it should be. Like, the ways that it is huge and terrible, that's not always how it translates to a 16-year-old. So I did like that. I think, too, if you grew up, I mean, especially Mennonite, but even if you grew up in any sort of strict religious household, maybe it would be even more intense to you. You'd feel it more, because I didn't. And so I don't know that whole extra element of having so much pressure put on you by your church to do certain things. That wasn't something that was in my life growing up, like that pressure from a church like that. So I think maybe if you grew up like that, or even Mennonite yourself, and I know the author did grow up in a Mennonite community in Manitoba, then I think it would have an extra level of meaning for you. Now I'm going to give some spoilers just to sort of let you know how it ends. So if you're interested in reading this and don't want to hear the spoilers, here's where you leave me. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on Monday. So what happens is Nomi stops going to church. Her dad is watching her spiral out of control, and he's just a very passive sort of father. He's not in her face. He's not, you know, telling her, you have to do this, you have to do this. He's sort of given up. With the mom gone, he's just sort of there. And so she stops going to church. Eventually she stops going to school. As all this is happening, every so often she'll come home to her house, and more furniture will be missing. Like the first day, it's the freezer, the deep freeze in the garage. And then eventually it's the dining room table's gone. And she's like, why? And he said, well, we don't really use it anymore. And then one day the couch is gone and she's just like, where's everything going? And what we later learn is as he's watching her fall apart, helplessly not knowing what to do, he knows what's coming. I didn't know. I didn't realize what he knew was coming. It didn't quite come to me because she was so adamant about never leaving him the way that the others left him. And so through her falling apart, her not going to church, her not going to school, her not giving to the community, she gets excommunicated. And they're told this by the head of the church, and then the next morning she wakes up and her father's gone. And the car is left in the driveway, and there's a note with some helpful tips for how to sell the house. He gives her tips for when she goes and starts her life, like little things like when you're listing your phone number in the phone book, don't put your whole first name, just put your first initial. It's safer that way, things like that. And then we realized that he had seen this coming. He knew it was going to come. That's why he was slowly getting rid of the big things so that she could sell the house after he left. And the reason he left was because that was the only way he could maintain some semblance of family. He left because if he stayed in the community and remained a part of the church, he would have to never speak to her again. He would have to pretend that she was dead. And so he didn't want that. He uprooted and left with the hopes that they would all four of them would be reconnected again once they got outside of the community. Now, I will say a lot of loose ends do not get tied up in this book. I was left with a lot of questions. The mom and the sister, we never know. We never find out where they are, how they're doing. And I get that that's not really important. That's not what the story's about. But I kept waiting. I kept waiting for it right up until the last page. So yeah, there's a bunch of questions left unanswered, but honestly, the ending, was I satisfied with it? I guess. I don't know how else it could have ended, and I did like that he uprooted himself and left with that sort of beautiful hope that they would all be reunited, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, once they were all outside of the community and could hopefully find each other. So, yes, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this book talk. Before I go, though, I wanted to give a shout out to one of the channels I've really been enjoying here on YouTube. The channel is called Artist by Beauty, and she's just this lovely YouTuber. She's very supportive, very nice. I've really been enjoying watching her videos. She has some beauty videos, some vlogs, and art videos where she just makes these gorgeous, adorable pictures. And I think if you love beauty, if you love art, you can't go wrong. So I will, of course, leave her link down in the description down below. If you do go check her out, please tell her that I sent you. And I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.